Hello, people of the internet. I am Andres Perez, aka KaijuNoir, back with another installment of Gundam Mania. I know it's been a long time since I've last done any Gundam content for this YouTube channel. The last time we did so was the review of the original Gundam 79 series with Titan Goji. Though, funny that I do bring up Gundam 79, given that we are still going to be somewhat floating around in this world, the era of the Universal Century and the One-Year War, with the pseudo-prequel series Gundam The Origin, specifically the OVA adaptation of the original manga, which was 7 episodes that lasted from 2015 to, I want to say, 2018. Yes, there we go. Got it on the Gundam Wiki this time around. And joining me on this occasion, it is none other than Nick and Lora, who you may have seen previously from both the Garo review as well as the Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 review.
Yeah!
Hello!
I feel like we're a little ill-informed when it comes to Gundam compared to those other two things, so this should be interesting.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like, when it came to the Gundam 79 review, that was David, our friend Davis, Titan Goji. That was Davis's first exposure to Gundam ever. So, and when it came to Gundam The Origin, now this is like your guys' first proper exposure to Gundam, I think. So it's kind of interesting that on these two videos, we're taking a look at, it's like me being somewhat of a seasoned Gundam fan, and just, sort of doing a collaboration with someone who is just being introduced to this for the first time. I've always been told, whenever anyone asks me, how do I get into Gundam, my go-to recommendation has always been start with the original series. Much like how a lot of Godzilla fans would say, start with Godzilla 54, just to give you an idea of what the best that this franchise has to offer, and just to see where it came from and how it affects the rest of the series going forward. And I have heard some people say, oh, start with Origin, because it's literally the origin of the original Gundam timeline. And I thought, it would be very interesting, doing this kind of review with you guys to see just how someone like Davis reacted to the original 79 series compared to the Origin series with you guys. So before going into this, I do want to know, what has been your guys' exposure to Gundam over the years prior to watching The Origin?
I think it's kind of the same for both of us, but I watched Wing on Toonami. I think this is the one I watched when they did that one run. But we were talking about it today, and we realized one of the main reasons we got into Gundam is because we were getting tired of Lego. So we were trying to find a different modeling thing to do. And then we're like, oh, we should probably watch the shows for these things that we're putting together. And I really like the pink Zakus. I like the curvy robots. And then Davis was like, you'll probably like this one. And I was like, so then I watched, there's 6 OVAs? Is that what we watched? And then for Origin?
Are you referring to how many episodes Origin has?
Yeah. Because we watched, there's the OVA and then there's the show. The show's got 13 episodes. But
oh, right, yeah. So I guess I'll explain to the viewer that Gundam The Origin initially started out as a theatrically released OVA series, and it was then cut up and re-edited into a 13-episode TV series in 2019.
Which is on Crunchyroll. So if anybody has Crunchyroll, they can watch this.
Indeed they could.
But yeah, so I had watched, out of the 7, I don't know how I messed this up, but I had watched 1 and 2, and then 6 and 7. And for some reason, it worked, and it made sense to where I didn't realize that I had missed the other ones, so that was interesting. So I guess my main Gundam experience is I've watched all of Wing, a little bit of Seed, I think, because I think that was the other Toonami one, and then I watched episodes 1, 2, 6, and 7 of Origin, and now I've watched all of Origin.
Cool.
In one go.
And how about you, Nick?
So for me, the only thing I've ever watched was I had seen Wing when Toonami first showed it. I believe a lot of people's original introduction was, and I really liked the idea of it. I liked the whole political intrigue and this ongoing drama. And then the second time I saw something about it was I'm going to get it wrong, but it was the chibi version of the Gundam show.
Is it Pocket Gundam?
SD Gundam.
Yes.
SD Gundam.
Yeah.
So I had seen a few episodes of that, and I was like, well, this isn't for me. And somehow, as a kid, I was like, well, this is what all of Gundam is, and Wing is the one-off. And in my head, I just never watched it again until we had talked about it. And then I have a few model kits then, even though I just haven't watched any of it, and now finally getting to see Origin.
Cool. So you guys have definitely had your fair share of watched your fair share of Gundam growing up, especially with Wing. And yeah, I myself am one of those people who started out with Wing, and eventually I moved on to G Gundam. I think you guys saw the first episode of G Gundam recently, right?
Wait, like Shining Finger?
Shining Finger, yes.
And then what's the one that we were watching like a little bit ago? With the orange one?
Oh, we saw the first 2 episodes of Gundam 00 together.
Yeah,
so we did see that. That is correct.
I've seen a random smattering of...
I did see the first episode of G then, and I saw like 10 minutes of 00 that you guys watched.
Right, that's true.
The Shining Finger, and then the other one has green dust.
Yes, green sparkly pixie dust when it flies. So when it comes to Gundam the Origin, it seems like this is your first exposure to the original Universal Century timeline / universe / continuity. Basically the continuity which half the Gundam universe revolves around and was what was originally established prior to the 90s, when they were like, let's just go crazy with G and Wing and whatever and chibi Gundams. So let's see. So when it comes to Gundam the Origin, it started life as a manga written by Yoshikazu Yasuhiko, who was a character designer as well as a animation director for the original Gundam 79 anime. And so you had this veteran of the original 79 anime. He wrote and illustrated this manga. And we also brought back the legendary Kunio Okawara, who was the mechanical designer for a lot of Gundam from the 79 series all the way into the 2000s. Pretty much coming back to do slightly more detailed redesigns of the classic 79 mechas, as well as designing a few new mobile suits that fit in with this aesthetic. And so you had these guys, they created this manga. It lasted from 2001 to 2011. It had a total of 23 volumes. When it was released in America from 2013 to 2015, it was condensed into 12 volumes. And it's pretty much an expanded upon retelling of the original Gundam 79 anime. And it's sort of like a pseudo reboot as well, because of how it redesigns its mobile suits. It introduces some new ones, takes away some old ones. For instance, the Gundam has like a shoulder cannon instead of 2 beam swords, things like that. And what was it? In 2014, it was announced that they were going to be adapting volumes 5, 6, and 7, going by the American release, of the OVA, of the manga, which went into Char and Sayla's backstory, something that was vaguely hinted upon in the original 79 anime, but never fully detailed. It was originally planned to be only 4 episodes, but then they expanded it to 6 episodes to do that big, large, grand battle that we ended up seeing in the last 2 episodes. And it was pretty much
episodes. That's my favorite part.
Yeah, just to think that we almost may have not had that at all. So this whole project was made to coincide with the then 35th anniversary of the Gundam franchise. And so, like I said before, once it was all finished, it was edited into a 13-episode TV series in 2019, simply titled Gundam the Origin: Advent of the Red Comet. And now we took a look at, we're going to be specifically talking about the original theatrically released OVA version, not the 13-episode TV series. I know, side note, that a similar thing was also done to the 2009 theatrical OVA series, Gundam Unicorn. That one was also a 7-episode theatrically released OVA that was then divided up into like a 12, 13-episode TV series. Here we are with Gundam the Origin. Like I said, this is the origin story of Char, of Sayla, of how like the origins of Zeon, and how they came to eventually attempt to overthrow the control of the Federation, and how we got to the status quo that we as Gundam fans are familiar with in episode 1 of Gundam 79. So I guess I do want to ask you guys first off, what were your first impressions, especially with episode 1?
I was very surprised at the lack of robots in the first 2 episodes, but there was a lot of like political foundation that they needed to put down, and I was more surprised about that because I didn't really expect that. I thought it would just be because Wing is like the only one I had experience with was Wing, and that one's like more action the whole time. So I was just like, I feel like I'm watching like Lord of the Rings, or not like Game of Thrones. And Star Wars and Dune put together. Like it was just like, and then it felt like World War II as well, and it's just like
a lot of symbolism there.
Yeah, there's a lot of. They're not Nazis. No.
they just happen to, salute in a very familiar way, and uniforms that are somewhat also familiar, and sometimes sound vaguely German. And
it's like Zimzava, Rob. I was like, and that was another, like, I still feel like I don't remember anybody's names, but I was trying really hard to pay attention, but it's like, at least everybody looked very distinct, so it's like I remembered everybody, but I'm like, there's so many different families, and like that. I think that's why it reminds me of like Game of Thrones, where I'm like, this is House Zabi and House Ball.
So I guess like the major players. Before I go, Nick, what were your thoughts? First impressions?
Mine was definitely similar. I guess I want to call it like a slow burn, like the first episode as it goes in.
Yeah,
but like it builds. I guess to anyone new,
it's still very interesting.
It is like, very interesting, but like I guess you have to expect that coming in. But it builds everything really well. Like I was able to stick through it, and like I had no problem. I wanted to say like 15 minutes in, I was already like kind of interested enough to go, okay, I want to see how this goes.
Well, like there's all the political stuff where it's just like you don't know who's in charge, and then somebody else you think is going to be in charge isn't in charge again. You're like, that man just blew up, and that other man's dead, and like I don't know.
How? Oh, this side question, like how? I don't know if spoilery matters with the origin and going into the original show or not.
It's 35 years old.
Well, I know. I just want to make sure.
Go ahead.
Okay, so like one comparison would be when you see like other origin things, like when I would see like the original Star Wars, and as an example, a lot of the characters you would see, when I would watch it, I would say, oh, well, most of these characters who you did not know, even as someone coming in, like if I had seen Star Wars Episode 1 as my first Star Wars, I would assume most of these characters will not make it through.
Yeah.
When in this, I'm like, oh, they're actually building characters up through that have more of a part to play in the future.
That was because when you were watching it, you'd be like, oh, that person plays a big role, and we're like, oh, they're just like a random boy running around.
Even in my head, like, we first started watching, I'm like, oh, well, this doesn't matter. These characters will just be here for this, and they don't really mean anything. And it's like, no, actually everyone has this nice, interesting part to play through.
Big time, yeah.
Nice character, which I really liked that.
Absolutely. When it comes to the original Gundam 79 series, episode 1 just like immediately throws you in the middle of the 1-year war, and it just like unloads a ton of exposition on you. It's like people are in space, it's World War II out there, and a colony recently dropped on Earth. Here you go. And it's a lot to take in, especially for audiences in 1979 who are just kind of used to sort of like that Power Rangers super robot style of storytelling where it's like, oh, here's a bad guy. He's sending a monster to destroy the city. Here's the super robot to save the day. Instead, it's like you're just given like a fictional history lesson. And as each episode goes along, it constantly reminds you of this current status quo of the 1 Year War. So it's like for anyone who's just jumping into episode 5 or whatever, it's like, we gotta remind audiences of this complex backstory. And it's like, it's for me really, really fascinating to finally get that complex backstory in animated form. I do believe that's
wrapping pumpkins here.
Yeah, no. Is the 1 Year War, is that the one that started with that fight at the school?
I want to say that was the prelude to the 1 Year War, and that the last 2 episodes of Origin is the official start of the 1 Year War.
So, like the Battle of Loum?
Yes, the Battle of Loum.
That's the okay, because I couldn't remember if like the school, because that's what they kind of said in like the prologue kind of ramble part where they're like, this was the start of this.
Yeah,
like,
that was definitely like the official. Yeah, that was definitely the official start of the conflict between Zeon and the Earth Federation.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess like to sort of explain to this for people who aren't familiar with the Universal Century stuff. So it's established that at some point, humanity moved into a large portion of humanity moved into space colonies that continuously revolve around Earth. And that there's this faction, what's it called? Side 13, I believe, that wishes for independence or for like equal treatment between the Earthnoids and the Spacenoids, as they have come to call themselves. And the leader of the Side 13 colony is Zeon Zoom Daikun. And he's promoting all these ideas of peace and being able to collaborate, to work together and cooperate with the people of the Earth Federation. Earth Federation, that's like just the world government. And Zeon Zoom Daikun is suddenly dies, apparently, supposedly due to a health failure, health issues, a heart attack. Yes. But everyone believes that the Zabi family was behind his death. And so there's all this like immediate conflict between the Zabi family and the Daikun's old family. The Zabi family, they're pretending to mourn him and pretend they're all buddies. And like, we're going to name our faction Zeon after our great leader who we did not kill.
I thought that was crazy that even like in this like 7th episode, they still have to like pay homage to him. And it's like, that has to suck to be like, yeah, we're in power and we're alive, but we still have to like, acknowledge that it was this man that's essentially the figurehead of our faction. It was just like, I thought that was funny that they still have to like make statues for him and acknowledge him. And it's just like, we did all of this, but he's there.
Well, at the same time, actively hunting down his children so that they don't come back for revenge. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work.
Yeah, well, that was another weird, like, it was like, it reminds me of like not like European monarchy where there's all these rules where it's like, these people really shouldn't have any power. Mm-hmm. But just because you're this person's son means so much to these people that they're still trying to kill you like years after it's well established that he's been dead and that this other family took over, but they're still really worried about I want to say Chavez, but I know that's not right.
Char.
Oh no, what's his original?
Casval.
Casval. Well, no, I guess that's not his original name, so I had that wrong.
He was Casval. Edward.
Yeah, Edward. Because then that was the other thing that was confusing. It's like they've got like 5 name changes. So it's like, this is why I had a hard time with the names. I'm like, who is he now? And now there's another boy that looks just like him, except he's different eyes. I don't know what's going on.
That's Casval.
No, that was the other guy. That was Char. Char was the other guy.
Char. Oh shit, you're right. Yeah, it was Casval, and then Edward screwed over Char so he can take his identity.
Yeah, and then he blew him up in a ship.
But it technically wasn't his fault. It was the Zabi family.
Days of our lives, but in space. Sands to the hourglass.
I don't blame that death on Char, because I'm like, I feel like he was like, oh, he's going to be arrested or questioned. Oh, the ship's gone.
They blew up that ship.
And meanwhile, you got Casval /Edward/Char. It's like, this works for me.
Yeah, this works for me.
It's convenient.
Episode 1's where we're introduced to Daikun's 2 children, Artesia and Casval. the two characters who Gundam fans would come to know and love as Char and Sayla. And right off the bat, this is really much so like the origin. They are the how would I say, the center point of this whole series, and especially in the case of Char, because I can definitely tell you now that Char is without a doubt the single most popular character in the entirety of the Gundam franchise. In fact, I've talked to plenty of my students, a lot of them who are like 40 and older, who grew up watching the original Gundam series back when it was on television back in 1979, and all of them unquestionably would say like Char is their favorite character ever in the show. More so than poor Amuro, and he's the Gundam pilot. It's like, nah, we want the badass masked dude in the pink Zaku.
I think that was the hardest thing for us to kind of follow along with, because you were like, oh yeah, because we just kept assuming that Char or the other Zabi, the youngest one,
Garma.
I thought he was the main character, and you're like, no, it's this other guy, and I'm like,
which other guy? Like, we hadn't seen him yet.
So many people.
Yeah, when it comes to the Zabi family, it's like very pretty big, and as Lora mentioned, each with a very distinct character design. I would say I do also want to bring up that I feel like this anime did a wonderful job at modernizing that 70s anime, old school anime art style without completely giving it an overhaul. You look at these like more like cartoonish, exaggerated characters, but they still like fit in this grounded sci-fi war drama.
Because I think we had looked up like little clips of the original 74 one, and it's like 79, and it was like, oh, that's his sister. Like she looks this, like it's very easy to tell that it's her. And then she was talking to the Zabi guy, we're like, oh, that's I mean, it's easy when he has purple hair and nobody else does, but like it's like, oh, that's obviously him. So yeah, that does make sense. It was interesting to see the different especially this one. This one seems like it has like different types of animation style even within the show itself. Because it's like the robots are like the CGI.
That is very true. This was something that was like experimented lightly in the Gundam Unicorn theatrical OVA series, where on certain occasions, like when the unicorn would transform, it would be all done in CG, but for the most part, they still stuck to 2D animation. But this is, I want to say, the first time, either this or Gundam Thunderbolt, where like the Gundams all the mobile suits, the robots, were all done completely in CGI. So I guess I want to ask you, this would now be a better time than any, what did you think of the integration of CG animation with 2D animation?
I didn't mind it because it seemed like it was kind of distinct between like the robots that was them, like that's how they looked. And then the people looked like the more traditional. I think it would have been different if like there was different elements mixed within both of them. But it seemed it wasn't as I think it'd be more jarring. But what was the one scene where it was like they were playing piano, and it was one of those things where it's like I feel like that was CGI, just because it's really weird to see somebody play the piano in animation.
Okay, we talked about this earlier.
Mr. Crowley.
Rawls. What? Yeah, Mrs. Crowley.
Crowley Rawl. If that's her first the Bart one. Yeah, there's a lot in this show. There are these movies.
It also doesn't help that in the Universal Century, everyone's got like pseudo-futuristic sounding names. So it's like some of them might sound like real names, like Amuro Ray, but then you get stuff like Frau Bo or whatever.
Like,
it's like,
or Edward, and then he's like, now I'm Char. Like, what?
Where's Bill Smith?
People who love Texas.
Like there was like the one dude who had like a Spanish sounding name. He's the guy that Char screws over during the whole Academy uprising.
Yeah. Isn't it Gomez? It's Gomez, isn't it?
I think it's probably Gomez. Yeah.
Because there's like, and then he's dead, and there's just a picture of him, and it's just like Gomez.
We've lost our token Latino, or whatever the hell he was. It's the future. Who knows what sort of crossbreeding there's been since then?
Space Argentina. right next to Space Texas. That was the funniest thing. Is when I feel like we're still supposed to be talking about the first episode.
Maybe, but it's perfectly fine. Yeah. So Nick, the CG 3D 2D elements.
Oh yeah, I really liked it. I think what helps was like the fact that part takes mostly place in like outer space, and the way the colors would work with it from like laser blasts and things was like the pink. It was just like the way the pink looked really well with it.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a weird way to just talk about the colorization of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it just kind of made it mesh all together. And then even when more in episode 1, when it was like the pre-Gundam, so when it was like the tank version of it, it just seemed to. I don't know if that one was CG or not, but like that one.
Yeah, that was definitely CG. The gun tank.
Okay, it just seemed to like mesh in the universe of the way the animation was really well to me.
Then it was like a little bit, and then it got to the point where then because you'd have like a little bit of the 3D or the CGI, and then it's like then that last 2 episodes was just giant space battle.
It's almost all CGI at that point.
That is a good point. Is it gradually amped that up?
Yeah, because then it made that last battle. Because I think if that last battle would have just kind of happened, you're like, that's kind of weird. Like,
although it is kind of funny because like this OVA starts off with that last battle like right out the gate.
True.
It's like you mentioned that episode 1 is a slow burn, and it is really, to be fully honest. But I feel like it's the good kind of slow burn because like you know that this is building up to something good. But I think the reason why they probably added that last battle at the start, it's like, so we know there's not going to be any Char action, but we want to have a good first impression on audiences so they can come back. So please, here's some Char action. Please don't leave the theater.
Moments eventually. We promise. We promise.
So what was it?
Like a slow burn for the first 3 because like there's a lot of that. I mean, if you want something that's just like action, like you. Because what is it, is it the end of the second one that ends with him leaving to go to the academy, or is that the end of the third one?
That's the end of episode 2, yeah. And episode 3 is all the academy stuff.
Okay, yeah, because I'd say that's when it starts to pick up a little bit. But yeah, even episode 2 kind of feels like, okay, where are we? Now we're in Texas.
Yeah.
I just keep saying that.
Space Texas.
Just Space Texas.
You just gotta call it Space Texas, yeah. I guess for some context, there's a like pseudo theme park space colony completely themed after Texas. They got old school clothes, old school taverns and buildings and wooden mansions. It's amazing. It'll
remember they go from Mexico to Texas.
That's right.
Because they go from the satellite. Wait, well, is it Lomas? Is that not? They're not from Lomas. What's the name of the city they're from originally?
Oh, I did not write that down.
He goes from there, then they go to Mexico,
Spain.
And then they go to Texas.
No. They were in Spain specifically. I remember.
I thought they were in Mexico. I thought that would have been funny if they went to Texas.
We crossed the border, but for some reason we went to outer space.
Oh my God.
We crossed the border. We didn't know the border we were crossing was the fucking stratosphere.
That's the ozone and all. Oh, that's funny. I thought it was Mexico. That's not as fun. But yeah, they were in Spain.
Yeah, so like episode 1, it takes place in UC 68. So this was a good like nearly 11 years prior to the events of Gundam 79. And we see then called Castle and Artesia attempting to escape their colony, Site 13. Again, trying to escape the forces of the Zabi family. Episode 2, they're now a little older. It's UC 71. They're living under the names of Edward and Sayla Mass, and they're fighting off assassins, and eventually go to Space Texas, where Char was like, "Peace, I'm out." Episode 3, we have Char in the academy, where he incites an insurrection against the Earth Federation. Episode 4, we finally get the proper introduction of mobile suits after it was teased at in episode 2, I want to say, when Ramba was forcefully volunteered to become a test pilot for the mobile suit technology. And then episodes 5 and 6 are like the big old grand giant robot fights. And although this is mostly a one-sided giant robot fight because the the Earth Federation is very late to the game when it comes to mobile suit technology, but as teased, I believe it was teased in episode 4, at the end of episode 4 or 5, that they got their own little mobile suit project in the works in the form of the Gundam.
Well, they had, what is it? Was it the RX one? No,
78.
70, and that was the ones that got destroyed by like the 3 Zaku's.
No, those were the gun cannons.
Oh, okay. Oh, and then there's mobile workers, right? Isn't that what
Yes.
you said?
Yeah, they developed mobile workers and used them as like a testing bed for that technology before then sort of graduating to mobile suits. And I want to say the mobile workers were like, at least these mobile workers were an original design made for this manga/anime series.
Oh.
And what was else I wonder? Oh yeah, when it comes to the integration of CG and 2D elements, I agree with both you guys. I think it was very well integrated. I think I may have commented while we were watching the Origin that at any point, if you were to just take a screenshot of these robots, you would swear they look 2D because the cell shading looked very good. And they didn't look out of place, and I think they were integrated well enough into their 2D environments, and that once by the time we get to the big grand battle, everything's CG, so nothing looks out of place. I've definitely seen a few anime that have attempted to integrate 3D elements into their 2D shows, and it always looked super jarring. One bad example I want to bring up is Super Robot Wars: The Divine Wars, an anime adaptation of the video game Super Robot Wars Original Generation for the Game Boy Advance. And all the mechs are CG, but they're like very shiny, glossy looking CG that just looks... It just looks plain ugly. Or going to a recent example, Goblin Slayer. Even though I'm a big fan of the anime, of the Goblin Slayer anime, the few times that you see Goblin Slayer himself in his like CG armor, it also just looks very wonky. But luckily that's not the case with Gundam the Origin. It just looks good all throughout, and by the time you've passed the first episode, your eyes are already used to it. It's like you don't even question it anymore. For at least for me, there's never a point where it's like, oh, that doesn't look right.
Was that night that they fought, was that CGI?
I don't think so. I don't remember it being CGI.
We were very proud of that scene because it was in every
Yes.
episode recaps. I was wondering if I was like, maybe that was.
I was gonna say it must have been like straight animation because every time they showed Char fight the knight for every trailer for the next.
Yeah, it was like last time on. Like that was 3 episodes ago.
Night.
Last time on Gundam Origin Z, Char fucks up a knight.
It's like, we know. We were there.
I'll bite your ankles.
He just looks like that.
Yeah.
He's like,
all right, we'll call it a draw. Let's see. And what else to talk about here? I guess like the one little side thing I wanted to bring up were the little Easter eggs for people who are already familiar with the Gundam series. At certain points, you get cameos of very like minor characters that appear in the background that then go on to become major players in the series. We see a little bit of Mirai and her father, and we see that it is Mirai's father who suggests that Caspel and Artesia move to Space Texas. When they're moving to said Space Texas, where they're in like a space airport, and you get a little cameo of Amuro, who is the future protagonist of the original Gundam 79. And even in the later episodes I want to say 4, 5, and 6, we get a little subplot where we do get a proper introduction to Amuro, his very distant father who's working on the Gundam project, and some of the people that he lives with on Side 7, the Side 7 space colony. And there's a whole deal where it's like he and his pseudo buddy, though mainly just an annoying little prick, Kai's like, hey, Amuro, your dad's working in some project, right? Well, let's go see what they're up to. And they come across Federation forces.
Storm this military base in a car.
In the car.
Yeah.
and then we all get shot at and nobody dies for some reason.
I do like that once we cut back to them the next day, like Amuro's perfectly fine, but like Kai and all his cronies just have bandages and gauze wrapped up. They're just beating the shit out of them. It was like the opposite of like, do you know who my dad is? They're like, oh shit.
And Amuro's just looking out the window.
Like, then he's just like, you can tell he thinks he shouldn't leave, but he's like, I'm just gonna leave. Gonna not get beat up. I did like, because obviously we don't really know the cameo ones, but it didn't really feel like it wasn't, because me and Nick were talking about this earlier. It doesn't feel like episode 1 of Star Wars where it's just like, and then C-3PO was made by Anakin. It's not just like I was waiting for if this would have been like Gundam Wars, they would have been like Amuro would have like fell into a mobile worker and then like somehow beat everyone. Like, it still felt like.
Well, my main thought, I was like, because I didn't know enough about it, I was picturing like you find out that the secret thing is that there was actually a third sibling, and it was Amuro, and he was like, you find out that they had to secretly take him away. From Char because they were really twins, and he had to be taken to their scientist friend
to build the robot.
They couldn't have children to build the robots.
So I felt like it was like good fan service for the fans, but it wasn't just like we need to figure out how to make all these people be in the same room together at the same time. Right. It's like it's like 3 of them are in an airport at the same time. That makes sense.
Yeah, and they don't like interact with each other in any way.
Yeah,
to any significant
like, I'll
degree.
see you later.
They look at each other.
I feel like I hate you. It's like, oh god.
I feel like our cross will pass someday. Wink. The closest they ever do that is just the aforementioned part where Mirai's father's the one who has extended interaction with Char and Sayla's guardian, and it's like, oh, you guys should go to Space Texas. That's pretty much all it is right there, and the previously mentioned space airport scene. From then on, I do like the fact that we do spend some time on Side 7 with Amuro and Frau and Kai and the rest of those people. We get to see like a little take on as like the conflict between the Federation, the Earth Federation, and Zeon slowly but surely escalates. We get to see the sort of the ground level perspective. These are people who are living in a neutral colony far away from the conflict, but you can tell that as this conflict grows and grows, there's that sinking feeling deep in the pit of their stomach that soon this like conflict is going to eventually affect their lives, and that things are going to change really quickly and really badly. It kind of reminds me, interestingly, of this is definitely going to date this recording, but it's like earlier this year with the whole Russian incident, where a lot of people were like very afraid the moment Russia started invading the Ukraine, and everyone was already worrying about like the repercussions of this conflict.
Or even like it would be like for World War II, it would be like they were America.
Yeah.
Watching a lot of it unfold, and we're like, we don't want to be a part of this. Was probably going to date this even more. It's going to date it by like. That was kind of what I was feeling when I watched it, because you kind of have a lot of like the World War II stuff like in the beginning, but at the end it's just like there's like some straight allegories for the different things in there. I was just like, so I feel like they're America watching it, being like, shit, like we have one thing that's probably going to pull us into this, and then we're screwed.
Yes. And I do think that this is why I love Gundam 79 as much as I do, because it feels like a very timeless story. And it being an anime made, 30 years about since the end of World War II. But you can tell it had like a very heavy influence on the storytelling of this series, but it's a kind of war drama that can be applied to any time period, I guess you can say, because sadly enough, human history is filled to the brim with endless conflicts and wars. Yeah, so, and that's also one of the themes in just Gundam in general. It's just like war is hell. This is like as much as awesome as we make war look with all the robots and the shooty bang bangs. At the end of the day, war is definitely bad, and that these are the sort of things that can result. These are the sort of tragedies that can result from such a destructive, world-changing, history-altering conflict. So I do want to know your guys' opinion on the whole, like, Amuro side of things whenever we cut back to him in the later episodes.
I kind of didn't really like Amuro. That's what we were talking about earlier. I'm like, it was interesting that this whole thing was like the leading up to a show that's going to be all about this guy, and I'm like,
yes.
The tennis ball looks cool. Is that how I wanted the tennis ball? He's kind of mean to his lady who makes him food all the time.
I kind of like the small introduction to him and the who you would think that you told us, like, there's a whole story with like him and the girl who obviously likes him.
Yeah.
And like how that ends up because of the war and everything. And I'm like, oh, this is like such a, once you said that, like, oh, well, they don't really end up. I'm like, this is such a good setup for like us not knowing that.
Oh, and you're like, oh, they're going to be together.
I'm like, oh,
forever.
this is going to be like the great love story they have.
This is the childhood best friend.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I was kind of into it for that reason. I'm like, oh, I want to see how like this all works together. You're like, no.
You misunderstood.
They're gonna end up together, and he's just like,
here's
no.
looking at you, kid. No.
Yeah.
Wait, is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. I must have a different one.
Yahtzee. What? Oh yeah. So that was. I didn't mind that, and then I think that was the other hard part. Was like it seemed like obviously they're getting ready for, because the last couple like 10 minutes of this 7th one is like, this is who they are and this is who they're going, and it gives their titles
later,
right? Because it's like obviously but it was funny because hers it was like cook on the ship, and it's like what happened with that?
They're all given professional military titles, military rankings.
Yeah, I felt like I was the only one. Like, there's some weird parts in the whole show that's like sped up really fast. Like, I felt like the end was kind of sped up, and then they're like,
well, there's a jump. I believe it's in between 4 and 5, or is it? Yeah, it's in 4 and 5.
It's like this 7-episode thing, and then all of a sudden he's the pilot of his Zaku.
Yeah.
Like, we watched him go to school for an entire episode. I don't get to see like them build the Zaku or them being like, "I'll make it red."
Nope.
Like, he gets none of that. Like,
he's like,
he's there.
He's like, and I'm here on the moon with a giant robot.
And then the other 3
Zaku guys.
What are the 3 guys called? Because they're like
the Black Tri-Stars.
They're like, damn that amazing red pilot, that dastardly, dashing, handsome man.
It made me sad when that cat died, but I didn't get to see the robot. Like,
yeah, I guess to further explain this to the audience. So, like,
sorry,
no, it's perfectly fine. It was in episode 4, after the military academy incident, where Char just straight up, because everyone knows that he's like responsible, so he's in good graces at the moment with the Zabi family. So he asks Dozel Zabi, Dozel being like the big Frankenstein-looking dude. He's like, "Hey, I know you guys are working on some giant robots. Can I pilot one of them?" And Dozel's like, "Well, okay.
Can you go to Earth first and be like a pit miner for a little bit and then come back?"
Yes. Yeah, he goes to Earth, trains with a mobile worker, ends up rescuing an Indian girl with psychic powers who plays a big part in the TV series, in the 79 series, and then after he's done rescuing her, we just jump forward to him already, on the moon in a robot. I think he's literally
like, where do we go? Where are we going to go? He's like, I think we can go up. And apparently up meant space and into a giant rocket. No, they go to the moon. They go to the freaking moon.
To the moon! La-la. And that's the thing. I did love seeing the origin of Char meeting Lala soon for the first time, but then I don't think we see Lala at all ever again after that point.
I don't.
There was one time where it showed her just sitting in a
looking
cabin,
out a window,
like in a space cabin, just looking out a window.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I think they're supposed to establish that she's still there with him, but she's like
they making space babies.
I don't know. Is that another one where we get ruined too?
They definitely
space babies are a thing.
they do have a thing going on.
Okay.
But
they drift apart too. Like
I'll just say that there are almost no happy endings in Gundam 79.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, maybe I don't even know if we want to watch the next one then. I know.
No worries. It's gonna be good. I guess earlier you mentioned that like Amuro being unlikable, and he does definitely start out that way, even in the TV series. He's like a whiny little brat. He's like, it's like I don't want to pilot the. He's Shinji. He's prototype Shinji.
Okay.
He's a character that he is the archetype that Shinji himself was based off of. He's like, I don't want to pilot the robot. I'm just a little boy. I just want to play some Nintendo. And eventually, over the course of the series, he's like forced to quickly mature and be like, okay, either I fight this war or all the people I care about are going to die. And so that's when he ends up becoming a full-on soldier. And even in the sequel series, you see like the result of him growing up into an adult, having had this like really fucked up adolescence.
Okay.
I love how all these people make robots for their kids to pilot. Like, if I'm making a robot, it's for me.
Yeah.
I want to pilot the robot.
No.
I am the pilot now.
My kid could be in like a leg attachment that's a wheel.
Yeah, take a little side buggy.
Yeah.
Like, no, my kid's going to be somewhere else, not near any of that stuff. But it's like, I'm going to make a robot for me. Jeff Bezos a rocket ship or something. Like, no.
Yeah. Let's see. Speaking of people who were born to pilot robots, let's see. Actually, before we go into Garma,
Hey, we had a good transition. What happened?
I want to bring up Garma, but I feel like we haven't talked enough about the main characters themselves of Char and Sayla. So we have been talking a lot about everything that happens around them. But I guess to really talk about this before we end up forgetting, what were your guys' thoughts on on Char and Sayla, and how do you think they worked as protagonists throughout this whole series?
They really make you like care about what happens to them. As like, I don't know if it's just the fact that you follow them as children and you see like they're kind of the victim of the circumstances of their family. Like I said, like there's a stupid. Was it Lucifer? What's the name of the cat?
Lucifer, yeah. We make the joke, Satan. No.
No.
That's right. I kept calling it Satan.
Yeah.
But it's like you follow them, and it's just like it's one of those things you just feel bad because it's not anything that they could do. But it's just like first they lose everybody in the first 2 episodes because their dad dies and the mom, they get taken away from the mom, and then the mom dies, and then
the cat dies.
Oh, the cat dies. Yeah, and it's just like they have this little graveyard of their family that she's just hanging out at, and then she thinks. It'd be interesting to see what she's like in the series because I feel like she has the right to just be the most miserable person, but I'm guessing she's not.
Oh no,
she seems like she's a very
yeah. Like you see a little bit of that in like the last couple of episodes, especially when she like leads the people of Space Texas to defend themselves against an entire revolt against them. She really is in the events of Gundam 79. She is like the most level-headed one of anyone of her age group. Like all the teenagers are all like losing their shit and constantly getting into like making rash decisions. Meanwhile, she's like the most calm, level-headed one, and it's kind of like there to like maintain the peace among all the people in that series.
It's like she's had like so much like it's funny that Char feels the need to get all this revenge, but it's like I feel like she needs it more than anybody else. Because even during that, like the revolt part you're talking about, like the other guardian person dies.
Yeah.
And it's like that's true. Too. So it's just like you're just constantly beaten down by all of these people that cared about them being like taken away from her. And then even do the other people, the original Char's parents, aren't they killed then too?
We never see them, nor are they ever mentioned in the original
they
series.
Get blown up. Remember?
Oh, was it?
They're leaving.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
because they essentially died the same way their son did.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
Like, you want to meet your son, right? Well,
Yeah. Oh,
It's
goodness.
crazy to see like Sayla's thing,
Mhm.
how you see like every single person die one by one throughout the story,
Mhm.
and she still they do a good way of showing like after all that she still decides I'm going to help people.
Yeah.
Like she goes to the medical field. Well, as far as I know, she's gone to the medical field.
She's a doctor, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And they even showed that she likes helping people before because she got sick. And is it the second episode she gets sick
Yeah.
when she's
Oh,
younger?
yeah, yeah.
She's like helping them. I think they literally say they have space sickness or something
Yeah.
like that. We're just like, oh,
Mhm.
yeah, just I like her. I like because I like Char too, but I feel like I actually like her character. It's not somebody I knew about going into it.
yeah.
Oh, for sure,
And I
yeah.
And they like I really established and like Rumble Raw, like I like it too. But yeah, it's just
Rubble.
Rumble. But yeah, it was just, I wonder if they would have made it shorter, if it wouldn't have felt the same way. If maybe you needed to see her lose her entire family and other family, her second family.
Mhm.
And for Charles, I feel like I guess you get to see his like want for revenge kind of grow to
It was almost like a sociopath. Like
yeah,
he doesn't
him just
care.
Oh,
becoming-
absolutely, yeah.
I think the only one he cares about is the mom, because you can tell he gives no shits when the dad dies.
Yeah,
Oh no, he was angry. It's like, how dare the Zabi family? I'll never
Yeah.
forgive them. Like, even as a little
I wanted to
kid,
kill him.
even as a little kid, when he's having that conversation with Kycilia, he just has this
Oh,
like death stare into like
Yeah.
his like rage-filled eyes, and even Kycilia's like, wow, I've never had anyone, let alone a child, look at me that
Yeah.
yeah, because I think he went into that thinking like, obviously I can like harass this like 12-year-old
Yeah.
boy, and she's like, no, he's dead. He's dead on the inside. He's gonna mess me up.
He's
And then,
gonna
like-
kill me soon, maybe I don't
I
know.
don't know.
And then, like, the moment his mom dies, it's like, that's the point where he just snaps and he's like, that's
Yeah.
it. I'm dead inside. Fuck everything. I'm going to do everything in my power to just do whatever I can to wipe out the Zabi family. That's all
Yeah.
I care about at this point is revenge.
And he wants to get like the entire family, because there's different points where he could get like one or two of them, but it's like, no, I want to
Not
like
yet.
decimate this.
Yeah,
Like, the fact that, like, he spends most of episode 4 just, like, pretending to be Garma's friend, trying to be all, like, buddy-buddy. And even Garma, he's like, I hate you, yeah! And then next time he's
But
just
I
like,
love you.
yeah, we're BFFs, Char!
Well, there's even like the one scene where he's just like, he's the one guy sleeping and he's like standing over him, where it's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, I could just kill you right now, but I need to kill all of your family.
Yeah.
Yeah, Char is definitely the kind of person who's very willing to play the waiting game, the long game, and the long stretch of things. But yeah, I do love the complete contrast between how Sayla handles grief and tragedy compared to Char. One goes down the virtuous path of wishing to help other people, the people suffering in the wake of war. Meanwhile, Char's ready to just like dive deep in, headfirst deep into the war zone. Even how do you say, escalating the war effort himself.
Yeah.
All in the name of
I thought it was at the
revenge.
school, because I'm like, he literally started the 1 year war
Yeah.
just to be like, I need to get this going. Like,
Yeah.
I've got people to kill,
Yeah.
robots to pilot.
And I do notice that, like, the moment, I feel like the point of no return was the moment where he screwed over Gomez. Because I feel like the audience can relate to him for his journey up to that point.
Yeah.
The moment that he intentionally left Gomez to die by allowing his
He
teammates...
killed him. He
Yes,
put him in the tank to kill him.
He put him in a tank, yeah, and then he convinced his teammates to believe that that tank was an enemy tank. With no means of communicating, Gomez is just a sitting duck as he's just blown to bits by his own team.
He's like, we'll talk on the special channel, and it's going to be you yelling at me. Oh,
And yeah, he's
that
just
was-
he's screaming for bloody mercy to Char, and he just
Yeah.
listens like, nope, don't give a fuck.
it's like you could, and then it was even weirder because it's like you feel like if you were Char there, you would be like, oh, this person wants to be my friend, and this person literally aligns with everything that you think I'm supposed to want, like you, because he was like, oh, I'm a supporter of your, even though he had been like the same age as him. He's like, oh, my family supported your dad, and like I feel like they killed your dad. I hate the Zabi family too. It's like, oh yeah, he's gonna have this best friend. Oh shit, no, he just murdered him. He even gave him his. I thought it was kind of that was the only like fan servicey thing where he's like, take this mask. Like, okay. This is the mask he has on the entire time forever. Like the little, like the bird mask. I thought that was kind of interesting that he took that from the guy that he
screwed over. He blew up. Yeah, and then like from that point forward, you don't spend as much time with Char anymore. Because now there's that I guess moral separation between the audience and Char, and at that point, then we start spending more time with Sayla and Amuro as a result, and then occasionally cut back to what Char's doing as he's slowly like putting his plan into motion.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
I think of it
they're
like that.
You need a break from this sociopath, because that's all. That's what would be all like 5, 6, and 7.
5 and
what was it? 5, 6, and 7. Yeah, because at the end of 4 was the death of Gomez.
I just like other carrot. Like how that sucks to be the person like you have to carry your dead friend's picture in a parade. Like, yay!
Trust me, Char has no issues with that.
He wasn't the one that held it. He just looked at it. He's like, oh, that's right. Because remember we were watching it. We're like, waiting for the one guy's face. You're like, oh, yeah, there it is. He's in the parade.
Right.
Oh.
Let's see. So we talked a little bit about Amuro. We talked a bit about Char and Sayla. Let's talk about the Zabi family. So there's the old man in charge. He's like the Emperor Palpatine in this situation, Degwin Zabi.
The Dr. No. He looks like Dr. No.
Oh, yeah, he does.
Cat.
We have his oldest son, Sosuro, who dies in a car explosion at the very beginning. Sosuro, of course, never appeared in the original series, and I believe he was only ever mentioned in the novelization of the original series, and maybe had like a brief appearance in like some random manga side story. So to see him be brought into like officially be brought into the animated realm was pretty cool, a neat surprise for me.
They like ramped him up too. Like I thought he was going to be like the one that, because I guess that's what the part, because you find out like his dad killed him to make it look like they weren't the ones that killed. That's hard.
I think it may have been Gihren who killed Sosuro. Gihren being the one with the silver hair, slick back hair. Oh no. Sosuro.
It's the dad.
Really? Because I thought like I just remember Sosuro slapped Kycilia, and then Kycilia was like very happy, was kind of happy upon learning of the death of Sosuro.
Because I thought it was the dad that killed him because he was trying to make it look like they hadn't killed the Char's dad.
Okay. So they want to...
Because he was like his Secretary of State, and so they were trying to be like, well, these people are killing...
everyone.
Yeah, like obviously I wouldn't kill my own son, even though I really like my second son anyway better. Actually, I really, really like my youngest son. Weirdly.
Yeah. I think when
the two little ones are the most interesting ones, and nobody cares about that.
I think when it comes to Degwin and Garma, like Degwin knows that most of his children are pieces of shit, and sees Garma as like the last hope for his family. It's like, you're the innocent one. Please don't lose your innocence, sweet Garma.
Yeah.
Let me touch your face. Like, no.
Let me pet you like a cat.
You want him to touch his face?
Yeah, he wanted
like,
yeah.
You put your hand on my face. Like, I'm uncomfortable.
I need an adult. You know, maybe that scene makes sense in Japan. Who knows? Let's see. We mentioned Sosuro. He's quickly dealt with. We have Gihren. Gihren is like I would say the most shady of the children, and he's definitely the one who is. A lot of fans have drawn the most comparisons to Hitler. Even Degwin within the 79 series compares Gihren to Hitler. There's Dozel. I mentioned the Frankenstein-looking one. He's very loud, very boisterous.
I liked him.
Yes, for sure. He steals the show every time with his like.
He just yells at that lady, "Will you have my baby?"
Yes.
Apparently, she said yes.
yes, she is. I was like, oh god, is this where we're gonna get those kids? Like, because there was the one of Char's classmates held in order to have their little insurrection, military academy insurrection. They put that plan into play. One of them had to keep Dozel hostage, and so the girl did that to him, and Dozel was like, I've never had a woman pull a gun on me. I like you. Have my babies.
You have my babies. He didn't even ask her to marry him. He was just straight up, will you have my babies?
Hey, at least he asked.
That's true. I like how when we were watching it, and I think it showed her name, and you're like, I think that's his wife. And we're like, that's weird. And then like 20 minutes later that happened. We're like, yep, that's his wife.
Yeah. After that, we see Kycilia, and even, like right from the get-go, we know she's an evil, just straight up evil bitch. And she's also got her own plans. We see a little bit of her conniving nature when I think she's the one who partook in some plan to make sure. What was it that she did on the moon? I know she was in disguise for most of the episode.
She reminded me of, like, I think it's like when I was thinking about all the different like allegories between like World War II. I think it's Goebbels who was head of like the SS.
Oh,
she kind of reminded me of that, of being like, she seemed like she was in charge of. Well, isn't that what they said? She was in charge of like the secret ops mission, because that was essentially what she did when she pretended to be
a blonde woman.
The coup on the moon, and then she killed the other guy. So it's like, I think that she was in charge of, I forgot what they had said, but it sounded like she was in charge of like the secret intelligence service, or like she was like the head spy master.
Yeah.
And then there was like a weird little shredder mask at the end.
Yes, and she wears that shredder mask like every time into battle. And what else? And I think she also had a hand in freeing that one general guy, who was a prisoner of war.
Oh, at the end.
Yeah. And like, she allowed him to escape, and even Char allows him to escape just so that they can continue escalating that war. Because at that point, the Earth Federation was ready to surrender to Zeon, and then as soon as the guy was turned out to be alive, he's like, "Don't do it!" And they're like, "Okay."
Like, they're horrible people. Oh yeah, because he had talked to because I think that's when you realize that like the dad wasn't really in charge anymore, because the dad was talking to like the head of the Federation. He was like, "Wouldn't it just be better if we didn't do this?" And it's like, "Yeah," and then she like gets it, so the Federation guy escapes, and then it's just like, yeah, these people are horrible. We need to fight. We're gonna screw over the peace talks.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And even like this also, that plays a part into Gundam 79 as well, where Gihren slowly but surely takes power away from his father and just like kind of puts himself in charge, similar to how Hitler took away power from the Prime Minister of Germany, and just made himself the dictator. And the fact that both parties wish for an end to the conflict, that also plays a big part later in the 79 series. And the last sibling was Garma. I think we talked a little bit about Garma. Again, like the youngest one, most emotional one, and the one that Char has the most personal ties to. And I use personal in quotations because we know he's a sociopath who uses people to get what he wants.
Nothing is personal. Oh.
Let's see. Any other major players that we haven't covered yet?
Ramba
Raw, you're right.
and his wife.
And his wife, and his dad, who we are Gundam fans are introduced. Jimbaral. So we have Jimbaral and Rambaral. They're the ones who play them, as well as Ramba's future wife. They all played parts in helping escort Caspal and Artesia out of the Side 13 colony. And at that point, Jimbaral sticks around to watch over them, and unfortunately, he bites the bullet. And you have Rambaral.
He was like crazy. I thought that was interesting that they did that with him, because you see him and he seems like he's like supposed to be the stately guy, and like you see his son, and then all of a sudden it's like he just kind of fizzles away once he I feel like he had some semblance of power and some semblance of structure, and once that was gone, he didn't know what to be, because then he's just like freak. Like I just remember when the son gets about, and he's just like, I get to be free, and then he's like living in Spain, and he's trying to like start an uprising again. And the one guy's like, "Could you just stop? Like, I'm just trying to live in my nice Spanish house with these 2 kids that I adopted, and you're trying to be like start a coup."
That's true. That's right. I completely forgot about that.
Because isn't it the reason that he was talking to somebody, and that's how they figured out that the kids were there?
That's true. Yeah. So word got spread quickly. Yeah. His was definitely a sad story, and the same could be said with Ramba. You can tell that he's someone who never liked the Zabi family and doesn't really, despite him technically being a part of the space Nazis, he himself does not wish to be a part of any of it, but he's just forced into doing that. It's like either you rot away in prison or you do as we say as a loyal Xeon soldier. That's what leads to him just becoming an alcoholic, and as it just hanging out in his bar, his wife being the one thing to keep him sane as he's he's testing the new mobile worker technology, and he always gets a blue robot.
If you don't get to see any, like, that's the thing I don't understand. It's like, I want to know why, like, I don't need an episode worth of, like, why it's blue, but, like, could we see it being built, or, like,
no.
that built them, and then it's just like, we have robots now. It's like, oh, okay. But this cat, you want to get attached to this cat? I'm sorry, I'm very upset about the cat.
And the piano, for whatever reason, they spend an absurdly long time on his wife playing the piano and singing this There's long ballad.
Musical numbers. There's 2 full.
What was the second one?
There's her playing the piano, but then there's her singing. She sings almost a complete song.
Oh yeah,
and then she gets interrupted by like the other people being like, "I want to sing karaoke." So that was the first one, and then the second one is her playing the piano, and she sings like the entire of a different song. Right,
yeah.
The first one is the one that's in English, because she's singing the song in English, and then the second one is the other song.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, because she was a lounge singer in that underground tavern / bar that Ramba attends. I can only imagine that maybe that was part of the soundtrack. It's like
has to be.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like there's some like pop idol, and it's like, okay, we gotta get this singer involved so that we can do some cross promotion, and then her fans will eventually watch our movie, and then we'll put her song into the soundtrack. It's like
people do like karaoke drunk nights and be like, "This is from Gundam."
Like, what was it like Seal, Kiss from a Rose with Batman Forever? Baby, compare you to a kiss from a rose on the ground.
That Batman soundtrack was cake, man. That was great.
Yes. Or was it like?
I really know it's the best one.
I'll show you. There's so many good songs on there.
or like the fucking Space Jam soundtrack with R. Kelly.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Oh God, no.
Everyone believed they could fly when that movie came out.
I always forget that's R. Kelly. Every time somebody says R. Kelly, I just think of that. I'm gonna play something. That's not even his song.
No.
My mind is telling me no, but my body.
Oh, Gundam though.
Yes. Let's see. Ramba, great character. Love him in the original series. Love him even more in this show. It is sad that we never get any more interactions between him and Char and Sayla. I thought it was really weird that they don't get any direct interactions, but I guess it's just one of those things where like, oh, they're about to interact. Oh, nope. Now they're going off in different directions again.
You kind of get like the in-between direct of like the random... What is it? The person that helped them get away, it shows up later at her hospital. It's like, your brother might be alive. And it's like, why are you here again?
It's like, Ramba was busy, so I'm the only one left from episode 1 or 2. And then the only other character I can think of are the Black Tri-Stars, but they're just a bunch of big, loud goons. They're just like, what do you call it?
It could be the same person. Like
they could, yeah. They're just they're just goons, but they are like the most iconic goons, I think, from the original series. I think they only ever appeared in one episode, but they did make a huge impression. to the point where it's like there have been parodies or homages to the Black Tri-Stars in other forms of media, even outside of Gundam. So to see them here is like, oh, we also happen to be the original Zaku pilots alongside Ramba Ral. It's like, that's clearly like a fan service moment there. They could have been anyone else, but they decided to bring in the most popular one-off baddies from the original show.
Where's Ramba Ral during the Battle of Loum?
Oh, I think he was transferred to Earth, and that's where we see him in Gundam 79.
Oh, okay. I was like really confused because I'm like, he'd been with them the whole time, and then is that when he refused to destroy Australia?
Yeah. So they had this big plan to hijack one of the space colonies, euthanize everyone inside with like a poisonous gas, and then just chuck it at Earth.
Because at least they killed them. I guess that was the only thing I felt really weird thinking that I'm like, at least they killed them all first.
Yeah.
Oh, that
was sad. That was another stupid. It was like the cat. It was like, let's make you like.
So we talked about this before
recording
the episode.
Okay.
Yeah, Laura and I talked about this. Like, I thought the saddest part was the boy and the girl who have like the love interest with each other.
Yeah.
The boy who doesn't even remember if is it a Japanese?
She's like, I think I'm Japanese.
Yeah, I think
they want to go to Earth. Like, it's literally this. Like, it would almost be like so trope, but they did it really well. Where it's just like, we should grow up and have a family and have a farm with stuff
and live happily ever after.
You're gonna go to the back room,
the bunker. I'm gonna watch you in the bunker, and then it's just like,
and
they're dead.
They're all
dead. It's like, oh god.
Yes.
And then you think maybe she'll be okay because they show the bunker, like the bunkers, and then no, she's just dead in the bunker. You're
everyone
like,
everyone is.
And then they crash into Australia.
Yes. Like I think I forgot where. Oh, they were supposed to crash into.
They were trying to hit Venezuela.
They're trying to aim towards a military complex that also happens to play a part in 79 series. To aim at a complex in South America, but the Earth Federation forces managed to divert it just far enough to where it crashes into Sydney, Australia, and completely wipe out. I forgot what percentage of the Earth population, because like
it said billions, right? It was like it was 2/3. I think it's 2/3 of Earth's population.
Oh fuck yeah!
Because they were just like, because I think when we thought it was originally like they just messed up Australia, but then they showed like the UN building and like it was essentially like
the aftermath of what would happen if that actually happened.
It was like the dinosaur asteroid hit again.
Yeah. And and that's what led to the Antarctica peace treaty, where I don't know why they chose Antarctica, but that's the location where all the Earth Federation and Zeon forces met to say, okay, regardless of whether or not any of us surrender, we got to agree, let's not do that again. Let's what was it? I know I put in my notes. Okay, no nuclear, biological, or chemical weapons, and no more colony drops. And everyone's like, are we in agreement here? And everyone of us collectively said, yes. That's
one of them only really affects Earth. I mean, you don't want to kill other people in your colony, but...
I guess unless you can have like a space colony crash into the Zeon space colony.
That's true. Oh, that was the other thing I was kind of having a hard time keeping track. Like, I think when I was thinking of like all the war allegories, where it's just like, I feel like I kept forgetting that some of the space stations weren't necessarily it wasn't just all of the space versus all of the Earth. Like it was, you figure it was like only really half of the space, or there was at least 2 or 3 colonies that were like either neutral. And then there was like the one that was it third? Oh no, and was there 7? There were 7.
I think there were 13 space colonies, or was it? Let me see.
Either 7 or 13, because I know like 7 or 13 was like the sector where they were building the Gundam.
Right, that was Side 7, yeah.
So there must be 7 then, because I remember that was the last one.
Right. And then, let's see. You know what? Maybe, I know I said Side 13. Okay, so it looks like there were 8 colonies, and I believe Zeon was Zeon's Side 2? No. I don't know where Zeon started from, unfortunately. I should have checked. But But
I think that was kind of the hard thing, because I think it was like, it's space versus Earth, but it's like, no, it's like Germany versus Europe. And I'm like, oh, that makes more sense to think about it. Like
yeah. If you think about it, like the Earth Federation is sort of like Europe, and the Zeon, the colonies that side with Zeon, that's like the Axis powers.
Yeah.
So what was it? So the whole like
and
colony.
the was cool.
Yeah,
Like,
yes, yeah, you're right. What was it? There was another comparison you made where there was a professor or Dr. Minovsky. He was the guy who developed all the mobile suit technology for Zeon, and he tries to switch sides, but unsuccessfully.
Well, the name on the he's literally on the moon, and I think it's Von
Braun.
Oh.
Von Braun.
Yeah, Von Braun.
Which was literally the guy that we yes, because I'm in America.
America.
It was like Operation Paperclip was where they went and took him from Germany and got him with a bunch of other scientists here to the U.S. to work on the rocket project. So I thought that was funny that they named that on the moon after him, and then that guy was he kind of looked like him too, from what I remember of the pictures. But yeah, it's like, oh yeah, that's literally the guy that helped. Well, except they got Von Braun to the U.S. That scientist didn't make it.
No, he didn't. He got crushed by a falling robot.
Yeah,
He was killed by his own creation.
That is true.
I guess was he the one that made? So you were saying he made? It's probably along the side. I probably should bring it up. But you said he developed the deflector technology and the Gundam technology.
So he developed the mobile suit technology that allows them to maintain balance both both in space and on any planet with gravity, be it Earth or the Moon.
Okay.
Yeah, so I looked into it. I forgot what it was called, but it was like that.
What's his name?
I guess I know the Minovsky particles. That's a thing that he invented, where it just like jams radio signals in space.
Oh, okay. Oh, because you're like the frequency is higher. Isn't that what they said at the beginning of the battle?
Yeah, higher like density of Minovsky particles. And I ended up looking this up on the Gundam wiki, and it's like the thing that he invented that keeps the mobile suits from having balance prevents them from like flying off in random directions while in space. So like if you're in space and you were to like throw a punch, you'd be like continuously spinning around in the direction of your punch. Meanwhile, with this new technology, you throw a punch and you're perfectly fine. You're just like, there we go.
Gyroscope in space, kind of.
Yeah, pretty much.
I guess it'd be the opposite of inertia. Like you'd have to, whatever force you'd have to exert, it'd have to do the opposite of it.
Right. So it's like constantly keeping all that. It's like an overly complicated way of saying space. The logic,
it works.
Space physics don't affect robots.
Unless we want them to. And like, oh.
I like that they spend, I guess, as a still a newcomer-ish to the Gundam universe, I like that they spend the time to. I know it's all whiny. They're obviously making up things.
They made an effort.
Technobabble.
Yeah, technobabble, but that in universe they gave an explanation to say this is our universal explanation for what writes this.
Yeah. I also like how like in the battles, the very end battle felt like a naval battle. Like it didn't feel like
time. Yeah.
It didn't feel like a space battle. It's like it felt like. I think that's why I like that's at the end. I was like, this feels so much like World War II, where it's just like they was like very slowly coming up behind, and they were like dividing their fleets. It wasn't just like, and then they had like all the different formations and everything. It was interesting to think that it felt like sometimes it felt like a submarine battle, sometimes it felt like a naval battle, and then everyone felt there's flying Zaku's. It makes it feel like a space battle. Like I think that might be one of my favorite, like just battles in general in the anime, because it was probably 2 hours long because it's 2 episodes.
Yes, like, the last 2 episodes are just one big ass battle.
Yeah, and I like how was it the Federation put their people in spacesuits, so it's like we'll come get you. It's like no one's coming to get you.
It's all I'd say like the way this series ends with the Battle of Loum. Yeah, honestly, I'm so glad they extended this series by 2 episodes just to give us that final climax. And yeah, I think that
if it would end some other way, like it would just been like, okay, like what? No.
Oh yeah. It's like you, especially when they teased us with episode 1 of that battle. Like, you better give us some naval action.
Yeah, and the 1-year battle did happen.
Yeah.
Especially with the colony drop, because that's like one of the most like defining moments of the Universal Century history. So to see that properly unfold and animated in all its horrific glory, also I feel like was a really big, deep, and impactful moment. That was like I would say that's the point of no return when it came to this. Like, any hope of extinguishing this war, it's like, that's it.
Well, it was interesting because it was like back to World 2, but it was kind of like the bomb dropping, but instead of that ending it, it just kept going. It was just like,
yeah.
Oh, it's be like I can't imagine if that would have been what happened in history, but it was just like, yeah, we did this horrible thing, but we just want to keep fighting. It's like, no.
That's like, yeah, after we dropped the bomb, Japan refused to surrender, and then we kept fighting for another year.
Yeah.
And it seemed like, well, and because there's the one scene where she's talking to somebody else on the Federation side. I can't remember who she's talking to, but they're the ones essentially like, wouldn't it be cool if we just kept fighting forever and ever and ever? But then they're not saying, it's like the weird veiled conversation where you can tell they're essentially just saying the opposite of what they want, where they're like, wouldn't it just be nice if we all got along and murdered everyone? You're like, no.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always there's always people, in any conflict, there's always people with very selfish intentions.
It was interesting that not a lot of it was all just straight power. None of it seemed to be like financial gain.
That is true.
At least like overly, like the show didn't make it seem like, oh, I want to be rich. It's just like, no, I want to be like I want to live in my Legion of Doom castle that looks really weird. That's
true. Yeah, it's like that's one of like the most like 70s looking thing where you can look at that. And it's like, yup, this is from a 70s anime.
Like, oh,
He-Man storming the castle.
Yeah. Like, I want to be in power. I want to have total power. It wasn't even like I want to make money. Like, no, I just want to rule. I want to rule space and the world.
Everybody wants to rule the world.
Even if it's just 1/3 of the world, because I killed everyone.
Yes.
I still want to rule it.
I think we do get some of that information. Like I think they mentioned Anaheim Electronics. They're the people who have built mobile suits for both sides of the war. And they are pretty much in it for the money, but that kind of stuff is like really pushed to the background, and it's like barely given any attention to in this series.
But that would make sense. But they're not like a side. It's not like they're like, well, I want to be like good. Like, I like that there's no good people. And they're not necessarily bad. Like, even the one Xeon people, you can kind of understand. Like, oh, they want to be independent. Like, I can understand
for sure,
like that. But it's like, you shouldn't blow up Australia.
Yes.
let the wallabies be.
Imagine like, hey, we just wanted to attack a military base in the middle of the jungle, okay? We had no intention of blowing up Sydney and 2/3 of the country. That's the Federation's fault, I'll tell you.
I like opera.
Sydney was an inside job.
But wouldn't, even if it's still, like, it's not like they blew it up and made it bigger to hit, it still would have probably killed 2/3 of the world.
Oh, for sure,
yeah. They just didn't mess up the Gundam project.
Well, you see,
is that where they're building the Gundam?
You see, Laura, the steel beams in the space colony.
I don't want to be here anymore.
I wanted to yell the year of the 1 year war. What is the year again?
70. It's the 1 year war.
This was 70.
79.
Yeah, this was 79. Yeah. 5 and 6 were both 79. Yeah.
One of the 79.
Steer to 70. Oh God.
As for the Gundam is built where Amuro is. Okay.
So what's in Venezuela?
That is one of the key military bases for the Earth Federation. Maybe I want to say either one of the most, if not the most important military base of the Earth Federation, since in Gundam 79, as soon as the Gundam is revealed, they're on a mission to transport that mobile suit from space all the way to Venezuela.
Oh.
So, like, the first half of the series is getting to Venezuela, and then once they're there, it's like, okay, we have no one to pilot this robot, so you'll have to do. And then the second half of the series is just them partaking in the war officially.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. That's poor Australia.
Yes, poor Rainy.
Poor Rainy. That's what I thought of, even though it's millions or hundreds of years in the future. I'm like, Rainy.
Rainy's descendants or whatever.
Her nieces and nephews' children.
Yes.
No. Not the wallabies and Rainy. Gully got it again, damn it. But they can take it. They can take all the spiders. Oh.
Yes. And the dingoes. Fuck the dingoes. Fuck those baby eaters. Anything else that we haven't talked about, or any other miscellaneous things about Gundam the Origin we haven't mentioned yet?
Oh, I did want to say one thing, and you mentioned like the I'm gonna get them wrong, but like the Gundam, the worker, what were they called?
The mobile workers.
The mobile workers.
Yeah.
How you had said like they were not like in previous Gundam shows or anything.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting because they look like the way they look is just like, oh, this was always part of the universe.
Oh, big time,
and maybe,
Kind of look like that.
Yeah, and
it
even
looks like they kind of combine those two things and
yeah,
be a Zaku.
And maybe that's because you had mentioned like earlier how the I'm just going to call them like the Jim Henson Muppet Workshop of Gundam, like the way that the Gundams move. What was
you said the mechanic?
Yeah, for the manga, like how you had said, like the mechanic people had come back to work on the manga.
Yeah. Kunio Okawara, the mechanical designer.
Yeah, I feel like that must be all a part of that. It just looks like it perfectly fits and has always been there.
Big time.
And I think of that as like, as stupid as it sounds, like a Jim Henson like Muppet Workshop thing. I'm like, oh, it's just always been there. It just fits perfectly. I just like a dumb observation.
No, I think that's an interesting way of looking at it. Sorry, Laura.
Oh, I was just on that where it's like, I think it almost makes more sense that they didn't show the actual Gundam because the Gundam doesn't really look like any of those things.
True, yeah.
And so it's kind of like, oh yeah, it makes sense, but I guess it kind of looks like those other ones that they were trying to make. So it's like, oh, that's the next progression, but it's like, you see the Zaku's and like, yeah, they're different colors, but they kind of look the same one. And this other one's like, I'm white, red, blue, and gold, and fabulous.
But I'm made by scientist man, so it kind of makes sense.
Totally not by a marketing team over at Bandai.
Buy my shit.
Interesting note. Back when Gundam 79 was in production, the original plan was for the Gundam to be completely gray, like gunmetal gray all throughout, and it was like a last minute decision by the higher ups at Bandai. Maybe it wasn't Bandai. I think it was like another toy It was like a toy company that was sponsoring the production of Gundam 79, and they're like, we need primary colors because that's what sells. When it comes to robot toys. And so then they're like, okay, we'll throw in some blue, yellow, and red, and we'll make it mostly white so it doesn't look too colorful. Yeah. And then like later on we got a brother unit to the RX-78-2 called the RX-78-3, aka the G3 Gundam, which is mostly gray and navy blue, and that's like the closest we've gotten to an all gray Gundam. Yeah.
I wonder how much does the mechanical artist what was the title interview you said at the beginning?
Mechanical designer.
Like, I think it has to be such a weird job when you're designing Gundams because it's like I have to design something that works in animation and can also be put together using like plastic injected molding plastic toys. Like,
welcome to the world of toy building.
Like it's one thing because I think most 90% of all Gundams are like the model kits. It's like it's one thing to be like do He-Man to be like just make it like a squid person and we'll make the thing. It's like no, you have to figure out a toy that somebody can build. Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of like there's this like robot called Steel Jeeg, and Steel Jeeg, his whole gimmick is that his like forearm, a bicep, torso, head, thighs, shins, they all can all come apart and connect together by magnets. And this was all an attempt to sell it, make a manga to promote a toy. But then, like, once they tried making the toy, it's like the magnets just could not be strong enough to hold the toy together. So they still produced the manga, but now there's not a real legit toy that can do all the magnet stuff.
It's like the ICP where they didn't know how magnets work. Like, what is that?
Yeah, oh. I guess in terms of like,
it's crazy to think about. That person has to be like, I have to design a robot and a toy and all of this all in one job. So I can see why he has done it, because you said it's like very long career.
Oh yeah. I have an entire art book featuring a ton of robots that he did for all sorts of anime.
He must just think in robot. Like he must just be a robot.
Robot on his head when he talks.
So I think I found the audience can't see this, but I looked up Gundam 79 original toy. So I think this was like the original toy they made. I just put in the private chat on StreamYard to show you just what that original Gundam toy looked like.
It looks like Optimus Prime.
It's definitely very heavy on the stickers and the colors.
Yeah. Oh yeah, those stickers.
And it also has like the V fin on its forehead is colored yellow. And I think like a lot of the early Gundam merchandise always colored it yellow instead of white. And even on some modern day Gundam art, you might see the gold version of the V fin instead of white. But officially it's supposed to be white.
Oh, yeah, it's yellow on here.
Yeah. But I guess like in terms of like designing something that works as an in-universe robot and also work as a toy/model kit, I would personally have no clue what goes into making something that fits both things. That's really I think that's a conversation for like our friend Tyler TJ Omega to answer that. He's the toy guy.
That was like just because after putting together so many Gundams, I'm just like I don't understand how these people's brains work. Even they're so tiny. I got the little one here. I know this isn't helpful. Wait. There we go. We got that one.
Oh yeah, the tiny one I got from the life-size walking Gundam.
Yeah.
The life-size.
I think it's called the RX-78 F00. They literally gave it a brand new name to distinguish this one from the cartoon one.
Oh.
It would have been funny if they just it'd be like Disneyland, but there's a Amuro like lookalike guy to get you a picture taken with him. Like,
great.
Like, yeah.
Oh, and here's a crazy thing. There's model kits based off of the RX-78 F00.
Wasn't it that one?
Yeah, but there's more complex ones. Like yeah, there's more complex like traditional Gunplas.
Like you could get a master grade of like
I think I might be looking at one.
That's like Inception. Like I don't know if the top is still spinning.
Yeah, there's so you got a robot, a real life robot based off a model kit. Now you got a model kit based off the robot based off the model kit.
Pretty soon they're gonna have a show about that coming to life.
Yeah, there already is.
No.
There's multiple TV shows about kids with model kits who use them to fight virtual Gundam battles.
What about that specific one? There has to be a specific show.
Wait. Here's the thing. Here's the crazy thing. I know we're on a tangent already. So like, there's a 3-episode OVA series about kids with model kits fighting virtual Gundam battles. And then there's another series, but it takes place in a different continuity, but one of the model kits in that second series is from the first series. So you've got a model kit from a show about fighting model kits depicted in a show about as a fictional show in a world where people fight with model kits.
Oh wow!
Buy my shit.
And then there's a video game that features both sets of characters, both sets of model kits in a world where characters fight with model kits.
Oh,
So
my
you got
brain hurts.
a world, a fictional world within a fictional world within a fictional world, all about kids fighting virtual battles with model kits.
Oh my god, that's too much. Too much Gundam.
And I thought it was bad when a little bit before this, I wanted to look up like some RX-78 model
You
kit.
found a solid gold Gundam.
I found a solid gold one,
Nice.
a Pepsi Next one.
Did you find the 7-Eleven one?
Yes.
I found that.
Okay.
There's a cup noodle one and a
Supreme
Supreme.
one.
Did you find the curry one, the Kokoichiban Curry House one?
Oh, I did not.
Okay. They put yellow stripes all over the RX-78 and the Char Zaku 2, and they give him a big spoon.
No.
Spoon!
When he was looking them up, it was like, it's funny how it's like, you think other places would be like, oh, they sold out, but for some reason it's fine. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, I could have a cup noodle one. It's like, oh, it's fine. But anyone else would be like, oh, like The Simpsons is in 7-Eleven now. It's like, no, it's not good. Like, they can freaking go to McDonald's. Like, why was the McDonald's thing? Because I was probably going to date it too, but why was Char at McDonald's recently?
I don't know. I think just because McDonald's
Okay,
is all,
because like,
McDonald's
it's not
is
like an anniversary or something. Or it's like,
probably not because like Char was doing like Toyota commercials just a couple years ago. He was driving a red car. He jumps out of his Zaku to ride in a red car.
When I'm not killing insurgents, I drive my Mazda.
That's what it was.
I don't. What was it like? I was piloting Zaku's long before anyone ever paid me to. I just like the way
God,
it feels.
Oh,
Mazda.
after that long inception of Gundam, but one of the things you asked before, like,
Yeah.
just to bring up, I would say that this was a good intro because,
Oh yes, yeah.
like, it sounds so confusing to think about the show within a show within a show, but I was like, I feel like this was something that was really good
Mhm.
and very well grounded in stuff that we could understand, and then it was enough that it made us want to watch the next thing, and not just like It didn't feel like I also liked that it didn't feel like a giant toy commercial because there's some I'd imagine there's some Gundam that might feel like that, or I'm not sure, but
Do you think, in the words of a particular mutual friend of ours, did this show come off as glorified military porn?
I think it did.
Is it a bad thing, though?
No, I feel like it showed it. It wasn't like, I'm trying to think of an example of something that's just like, yeah, this is. It wasn't like. I guess it's kind of like Starship Troopers, where it's just like, it was aware of what it was, and it was showing you like the bad sides of things, but it was showing you in a way that you should know, like, hey, this is not good. Like, obviously, these people are not good people. But it wasn't just like. But it was cool to see all the robots. But I would say it is probably glorified war. At least the last two episodes definitely are. Like, I felt like that was like some intense naval strategy shit going on.
You sunk my space battleship.
Yeah, they're like, they're looping around and they're behind us now. It's like, they can go down. Like, no.
It's space. There's no gravity. We can just move our ship downwards. It's like, no, it's being disorienting to the viewer. What viewer? Shut up!
There was even like the group of ships that couldn't leave because there's that whole thing at the end. They're like, they could do this, and everybody else says they could do this, and then they didn't do that. They're like, he could leave, and they could blow, because I think you're supposed to think that they're going to kill like the dad, right? Isn't that?
Oh yeah.
And they're like, no, they could do that. And like, I think 4 people, it almost seemed like Spaceballs, because there's like 4 different people being like, they could blow up that ship. Oh no, they could blow up that ship. And they're like, it's fine. It's cool.
Yep. I guess, Nick, what are your thoughts in terms of like, is this a good introduction to Gundam, and are you interested in further exploring more Gundam?
Oh yeah, so for me, I definitely feel like it was a good introduction to Gundam. I guess I wonder like how other like if there are other Gundams that you would think, after I say this, that would be an even better introduction. But as for me personally, this was like the perfect introduction. I wonder if there's one that's like more just actiony based that might be a better introduction to like a general consumer. But this definitely was for me, and it got me wanting to like hurry up and start watching the actual main series that everyone talks about, and then going from there, depending how I like that. I always have a thing in myself, in my own head, where I have to like just go through everything chronologically as they're released. So I'm wondering about like, if I just keep liking it, do I just keep watching each season from here on? Because I was like beyond pleasantly surprised. Like I really got into this.
I gotta do it once. Robix! Only Monstrosity fans are gonna get that.
Yes.
And let's see. And how would I go about this? Here's a question for both of you. Would you two have rather have watched this in 13 episode chunks, or just the six pseudo movies that we got?
Is it 6 or 7?
6.
I thought we said 7.
Checking my notes. It is 6. It is 6.
Okay.
I thought it was, yeah.
I think it's because they were saying Sector 7. And I was just like, oh. I think it felt like, because obviously they're movies, I think this feels like something that should be a series of movies. I don't know if I could. Oh,
I didn't get to check it out, but I believe the 13 episodes are cut down a little bit of the 6 movies, correct?
Yes, I believe so. So maybe like there's like a cliffhanger in the middle, and then that's the second half of the movie would make up for episode 2.
I definitely like the, at least for me personally, I definitely like the format of 6 movies. I just felt like each one had like a nice big funization. They all just felt like big epic showcases to me.
Oh yeah. It'd be like these were like, take like episode 1 for instance, or the first movie for instance of Char and Sayla as little kids attempting to escape the colony in a giant gun tank. It's like to have a cut to like a cliffhanger in the middle of all of that would feel very awkward, because it was never, in my opinion, it was like never written, because it was never intended to be, the story was never intended to be told that way. It would come off as feeling unnatural to just take a break right there. And yeah, when it comes to like the Gundam Unicorn, which is also given a similar treatment of taking these theatrically released OVAs and then chopping them up into smaller 30-minute chunks, I've heard from people that the episodes do end in very like abrupt, unnatural ways.
Do they even have like commercial break things too, or is it just like...
I don't know. I've never, because I have like no interest in watching that format. I would have no idea if it's like, we'll return with more Gundam Unicorn. We now return to Gundam Unicorn.
A message from your ramen sponsor.
No, I just picture
Grande sponsor.
What's the guy that Char killed that got killed in the tank?
Gomez.
I just picture Char getting Gomez killed, and it's like, and now for the commercial break, and then it shows him eating a cheeseburger from McDonald's.
Commercial, he's just dancing.
Him and Char dancing in the circle, and it goes back to the show.
Or like Char just eating a McDonald's burger as Gomez's tank explodes behind him.
3 times the patties, like, oh my god. No.
I actually, now that I think of it too, I think this format works even better now when you think of things like I want to say like Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones or Stranger Things. How it's been, where like
each episode's like an hour.
And that's what people come to expect.
This is how long it needs to be, so this is how long we're going to make it.
It might be 49 minutes. It might be
an hour and 20.
Yeah, and it's like, this is the perfect, like, I feel like that, at least for me personally.
We recently did... Yeah, we recently experienced that with Mikazuki, the giant robot Keita Mamiya series that was like only 6 episodes, I think. But then like one episode would be 50 minutes, one episode would be an hour and a half, and it didn't really matter. Just whatever a Mamiya wanted. He's like, fine, we'll let that crazy bastard make whatever masterpiece he needs. Just give him all the money. Have that giant robot fight some more creepy sex pervert monsters.
That was my favorite episode of that. I feel so wrong.
He
I
needs,
was like, we could do a Mikazuki episode too.
he needs 9 more minutes to fight the watermelon.
Let's see. So, closing thoughts. I guess we pretty much gave our final thoughts on the series. I'm assuming that we all recommend Gundam the Origin?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Cool.
2 Gundam thumbs up.
Yes. 2 beam swords way up.
Yes.
Beam sabers, I don't know. So, yeah, after this, we're going to be checking out the compilation movie trilogy that was the original Gundam 79 series. After that show was made, I believe it was like 39, 49 episodes, somewhere in like, I think, no, maybe 42 episodes. I always forget how many episodes the original Gundam is, but after it was made, it was then compiled into a trilogy of movies, and a lot of Gundam fans would often recommend the compilation movie trilogy over the original series, in that they say that it trims the fat. There we go, 43 episodes. They say it trims the fat out of those original 43 episodes, and instead gives you a very condensed yet concise version of the Gundam story. I've never watched this movie trilogy before, as much as I love the 97, because I love the 43 episodes Gundam 79 series so much. So it's going to be very interesting to see how these movies are, not just for me, but also for Nick and Laura, as we jump from Gundam the Origin straight into the 1-year war of Gundam 79. So it's going to be interesting to see how all this will play out. Not sure if we'll cover the movies in the movie trilogy in another video. I don't know if Nick and Laura would be interested in doing such a thing. Okay, so it looks like she is also interested then. So yeah, it looks like we're not quite done yet with the Gundam 79 cast just yet.
There's also like an episode, or not what's the one that happens in between?
Oh, the Lost episode.
The reason we watched all of this is because Davis was like, "Hey, there's this extra episode of this thing." It's like,
yes.
Oh, okay.
So as of this recording, this movie had already come out in Japanese theaters. It was Mobile Suit Gundam Kukuru's Dawn's Island, I think that's what it was called. And this is a random episode in the middle of the Gundam 79 series that was taken out of the international release because Tomino, the creator of Gundam, did not like the quality of this episode. He thought it was like very substandard. It did not meet his standards. So every official DVD, Blu-ray, streaming release of Gundam 79 always lacked this episode. And so for whatever reason, the people at Bandai were like, let's just remake this into a movie using the Gundam origin designs and aesthetic.
What a market F you to that guy.
And the funniest thing is that they took the Zaku's looked very off model, like its little like gas mask looking mouth was like stretched out and just looked very wrong. And so they decided to say, oh, this is just a customized Zaku, so that they now have an excuse to just make new model kits based off of this specific Zaku from this specific product.
Zaku, it's just like long. I don't like it.
It looked more like an elephant trunk.
Yeah, I'm like, what are you doing to my boy?
With the Matthew Lillard Zaku.
Yeah.
Zoinks! All right, so we'll catch you all again next time, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. Please let us know in the comments below, what do you think of Gundam the Origin, and what do you think it would be the proper first introduction to Gundam for a lot of people? I know everyone's got very different answers, and so now we know what it's like to hear from the opinion of someone whose first experience to Gundam, or I guess you can say first proper experience to Gundam, was the 79 series, or in Nick and Laura's case, the Origin series.
That's our canon experience.
Yes.
Our first true canon experience.
So until next time, everybody, I have been Andres Perez, aka KaijuNoir.
I always forget what you do here. Forgot last time too.
We are Nick and Laura.
Yeah, bye.
And until you're very much welcome. And until next time, everybody, take care.